Hello, my name is Brandon Magoon, Chair of the Libertarian Party of Erie County. With me today is Ebert G. Bill Beeman, candidate for Congress in the 16th District. Welcome, Bill.
Hello, how you doing?
Bill, why don't you tell voters a little about yourself?
I grew up in Waterford, Pennsylvania. Started first grade in 1954. Went to Fort LaBeouf's Government School District. Graduated in 67. Then I started college in Edinburgh in fall of 67. Graduated in 71 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in math and natural sciences.
And what was your work experience after that?
Then I started General Electric right after that.
How long did you work at General
I worked
Electric?
at General Electric for 31 years. Most of those years I was a welder. When I retired in 2005, when I was 55, I was working in a powerhouse burning coal and making steam and electricity.
Interesting. Have you ever held an elected office before?
Yes, in 2007 I was elected township auditor. That was for 6 years. Then in 2009 I was elected to the Erie County Council.
I heard a rumor that you didn't actually take any pay when you were an auditor.
No, I refused it. They only met once a year. I didn't want any money for that.
What about county council? Did you accept that?
I refused that too, but the county solicitor, Tom Tallarico, told me I had to take some money. He said you had to take at least $5 a week. I said, okay. And then he said, well, you can't do that either. You have to take all your money.
Okay. How do you think you would be described as a member of county council?
The most conservative by far. I voted against pay increasing, spending more money than the other six combined by far.
I think people were surprised when you were put on the ballot in August. Let's talk about what the Libertarian Party had to do to get you on the ballot.
We had to get 50% more signatures than the other candidates, but I got them without much of a problem. I had all summer to do it.
Were you able to get signatures from all 5 counties?
Yes.
What about the donation you made to the Veterans Medical Center?
I gave $1,000 to get some publicity to the veterans in Erie County. Chuck Turner was the main man at that place.
Speaking of veterans, what do you think of how our service members and veterans are treated?
They're not treating nearly as well as they should be. We get them into the service and we discard them afterwards. There are a few groups that are helping them out, like the Veterans Medical Center in Erie.
So what do you think of the way our military is used? I mean, do you think we have too many bases in other countries?
Way too many. Too many wars. George Walker Bush started 2 wars, and then Barack Hussein Obama started 5 more, and now Donald Trump has all those wars going. Plus, he bombed more Muslim families in the Middle East in the first 6 months than Barack Hussein Obama did in 2 years, his first 2 years.
As a member of Congress, would you introduce legislation to repeal once and for all the congressional authorization of military force
Yes.
that has been in effect since 2001?
Yes. We should only go to war if Congress declares war, like it says in the Constitution.
About how much does the United States spend on war?
It's about $875 billion. That's more than the next 8 countries combined. It's 10 times what Russia spends.
And aren't 4 of those countries our allies?
Yes.
Obviously, this is a drain on the economy. Recently, it's been reported that the economy is doing great and that unemployment is at a 49-year low. But many people in the 16th District seem to be suffering. Do you think things are going well or games being played with numbers?
Things are terrible. What the government is telling us about unemployment is nonsense. They only count the number of people that are collecting unemployment, not the people that are not actually working who want to work.
So the unemployment rate's really over 20%.
It's over, according to John Williams at shadowstats.com, it's about 25%.
How does income inequality affect the middle class?
The middle class is disappearing. There's no productive, well-paying jobs for them. If somebody is working 1 hour a week, they're not considered to be unemployed.
So when did the gap between productivity and compensation really start?
Started in the early 1970s when Nixon took us off the gold standard.
That's an interesting point. How has the lack of hard money and resultant price inflation affected the American worker?
We just print money willy-nilly. In 1964, one silver dollar could buy 6.5 gallons of gasoline, more than 4 gallons of milk, almost 7 dozen eggs, almost 3.5 pounds of beef, and almost 30 first-class postage stamps. Today, a dollar bill buys less than 1/2 gallon of gas, less than 1/3 of a gallon of milk, 6 dozen eggs, 1/4 pound of beef, and less than 3 first-class stamps.
So when did all this price inflation begin?
Well, it started in 1913 when we created the Federal Reserve.
Did the Federal Reserve actually, what's led to the first Great Depression?
It led to the first Great Depression because of government manipulation. There was a severe depression in 1920, but it only lasted 1 year because the government didn't do anything to combat it. They just let the free market take over. Today, it's completely different. We have massive printing. We're bailing out the banks for their manipulations.
And of course, things got really bad in 1971. We were taking out the gold standard completely.
1971 is when they just started creating money.
So the federal government finished fiscal 2017 with a budget deficit of $666 billion, correct?
Correct.
And that was an increase of $80 billion over the previous year and the biggest shortfall since 2013. What do you think about spending?
We have to stop spending. We have to eliminate several unconstitutional agencies. Just as I did as a member of county council, I will hold the line on spending increases.
There's been a lot of talk in recent years about legalizing marijuana for medicinal and or recreational use. Do you think this is a good idea?
It's a terrific idea. 50 years ago, libertarians were preaching the evil of making marijuana illegal. The number of people in prison have skyrocketed just because of that. 3/4 of the people in prison are in prison for nonviolent crimes.
So how much is it costing the U.S. taxpayers to imprison all these nonviolent people?
$80 billion on corrections, or $260 per United States resident. The United States has the world's highest incarceration rate, both in absolute numbers and by percentage. With 5% of the world's population, we have 25% of the world's prisoners. We're supposed to be the land of the free, but we're not.
Let's talk about healthcare policy. Especially in the last 10 years or so, there's been a massive increase in healthcare costs. Why do you think that is?
Because of government intervention. When I was in Ghana, I had a X-ray done that cost less than $15. The last time I had X-rays in the United States, they were over $300 a piece. But the government paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that federal tax policy has negatively impacted healthcare spending?
Of course. The problem is that wages are taxed, but benefits are not. This has encouraged employers to offer benefits rather than pay increases. The problem is that a benefit is of no use unless it's actually used. This has caused an overuse of health insurance. If people use car insurance or house insurance the way they use health insurance, that would spiral out of control as well. This is one of the reasons we need to abolish the income tax.
What do you think of the idea of term limits?
I love the idea of term limits. In the Articles of Confederation, we had term limits. It was a mistake to go from the Articles of Confederation to the present Constitution.
How many terms do you think you'll serve as a member of Congress?
1.
What do you think of the congressional pension system?
It's out of control. There shouldn't be any pension for government employees.
What about our immigration system?
Law-abiding people should be allowed to come in through legal means, but we don't need immigration. We don't need ICE immigration control. We can just bring the troops home from the Middle East, and they can take care of the southern border.
So So no wall.
Correct. No wall. We don't need a wall.
We'll have to tell Trump that when we see him tonight.
Yes. And we have to tell Kelly that the economy is not in great shape, like he said it was. Economy is in terrible shape. The whole system is going to collapse very soon.
Yeah, we could have told him that at the debate, but he didn't have the guts to phase us. What are your views on firearms?
Everyone should have a firearm. Every law-abiding, nonviolent person should have a firearm if he wants one. You know, like they've always said, if guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
Because there's no practical way to significantly reduce the number of firearms anyway without having a massive increase in crime and violence. Correct?
Correct.
Gun laws are really only going to affect the people who aren't the problem. There's already 20,000 gun laws on the books.
We don't need more laws concerning firearms. We'll just enforce the laws we already have.
All right, that's about all the time we have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And I hope I've earned your vote on November 6th. My name is Everett Beeman, and I approve this message.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for another week of Coffee with Kerns. As voted on by you, the voters, we are discussing a topic this week, the opioid epidemic. And this week, you might be wondering, who's this guy next to Dale Kerns? It's not Lou Barletta. It's not Bob Casey. They still haven't accepted my challenge to debate. So I have Chris Dreisbach here today. Chris is the CEO of Blueprints for Addiction and Recovery, and Chris you might say he's an expert in his field. He's someone who walks the walk, talks the talk. He's lived the life, and we shouldn't always just reach out to government and politicians to lead the way and tell us what we should do. I'm a construction worker, as you know. Many people in Washington, D.C., they're not experts in their field. So I'll talk a little bit about my bill today, but I also have Chris here today to talk about some of the struggles that he's gone through in his life and some of the struggles that he goes through in his business as the CEO of Blueprints for Addiction and Recovery. So again, I want to thank you for tuning in week after week. I want to thank you for taking part in the polls. I want to thank you for sharing, liking, commenting, the donating, volunteering. It's also helpful. We're in this race right now where we're starting to get noticed. We're starting to see polls out there that are favoring where voters just want change. And it's all because of you guys out there, the viewers and the voters that are liking, sharing, and spreading the word across the Commonwealth. So today we're here to talk about the opioid epidemic. And as you know, I'm in Pittsburgh today for a town hall, and I'm discussing my bill, Addiction's Not a Crime. And I think that's how we combat this opioid crisis. I think it's by taking a look at the root cause of addiction, taking a look at, what's causing the problem, not treating symptoms, not just kicking the can down the road or throwing this political football. I think it's time that we actually start looking at solutions, getting out there with the people, finding out what the people's problems are, finding out what the people's solutions are, having free market-based solutions that can save money. For one, we've spent over $1 trillion in the last 40 years combating this war on drugs. It hasn't worked. We have an 800% incarceration rate since that time. That hasn't worked. We just keep jailing people, hitting them over the head with a baseball bat, pointing a gun at their head, locking them up like animals in cages, and this opioid epidemic just keeps getting on the rise. In 2016 to 2018, we saw considerable spikes in Pennsylvania. 80% of Pennsylvania counties exceed the national average for this opioid epidemic in overdose deaths. I mean, that's troubling. We're hit harder than most states here in Pennsylvania alone. In Western PA, they've been hit a lot more in like Allegheny, Westmoreland County, things of that nature. There have been some counties, I believe it was a total of 14 in Pennsylvania, that actually decreased last year. But all in all, Pennsylvania was on the rise from 2016 to 2017. So I think it's time we take a look at models in Pennsylvania that have worked. Like in Bethlehem, the police there in Bethlehem, they said, you know what, we're not going to arrest you if you come in and you want to get treatment. They say you come in and get treatment. You come in and ask for treatment, you hand over your paraphernalia, we'll help you get to a treatment facility. We're going to opt out of this war on drugs. And that's huge. That's huge for a police department to do. And if more police departments were doing that, if more people were doing that, if we just nullify this thing, we can start treating people and help people get on the way to treatment. But in order to do that, we need to get rid of the stigma. There's a huge stigma behind this thing. For years, there was a stigma behind AIDS, and now we're seeing some traction in AIDS. I mean, people are virtually being cured from AIDS. We need to see the same thing around this opioid epidemic. We need treatment for these people, free market-based treatment, not treatment from the government where the government's stepping in and they're controlling the marketplace, because that's what we actually have now with the treatment facilities, and some of it doesn't work. But there are many treatment facilities that do work. So we need to look at those models, look at some instances in Pennsylvania where it's worked, but also let's look in other places around the world. We're seeing places like Portugal, Ireland, and many other places around the world that are actually combating this. They're completely turning the world around, the world in which they know it. They're putting treatment over incarceration. They're getting rid of the war on drugs. They're decriminalizing drugs, and they're making things happen. So my bill, Addiction's Not a Crime, it really looks at all these models and it introduces the principles of what we are as libertarians and Americans, and that's free market-based principles. The same free market that Lou Barletta says doesn't work, but you and I know it does, because you are the free market and I'm the free market. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to implement this Addiction's Not a Crime. I'd like you to come out to my town hall and hear more about Addiction's Not a Crime, but I'd like to hear from Chris Dreisbach here. Chris, could you tell us a little bit about your history and how you came to where you are now and some of the hurdles that you faced?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dale. It's exciting to be here in Pittsburgh for the town hall today. And, some of the things that I've faced in my life is I struggled with substance use disorder for my entire life, essentially from the age of 13 at my first drink all the way up until I got sober at the age of 20. And, I got sober in jail, actually, Mr. Dale. So it's extremely difficult when you're going in this vicious cycle over and over and over, where you're started using, innocently as a 13-year-old, just kind of exploring and experimenting and seeing what, the world has to offer. At 13, you don't have many forethoughts about your future. You don't have many forethoughts about anything that's really coming up. And you just innocently take a drink, and then the drink takes you places you don't want to go. And that drink led me into many other things, eventually landing in heroin. And heroin led me to, petty crimes and different things of that nature that led me into a parole system and a probation system that kind of kept me down in this unfortunate vicious cycle of going to jail, getting out, failing again, going back to jail, and never really getting the help I needed. And after the last time I went to jail, I finally landed in a treatment center that helped me live life successfully. And when I lived life successfully for a period of time, I found some difficult things, like being able to find good work, being able to find things due to my criminal record, being able to get housing. People will shut you down because you have felonies. People will shut you down because you have misdemeanors. People will take your bad credit that you can't maintain while you're having a heroin habit. So it's very difficult to find employment, very difficult to find food, very difficult to find pretty much everything. And thankfully, through a lot of good mentors and good community members that taught me a different way to live, I was able to open my first business in 2010 and build from there. So
over the years, you've gone through recovery, you went through the treatment system, and treatment has worked for you.
Yes.
But you see a lot of failures out there in this world, just because of the government that we have and the hurdles that we have. People have to check that box that they're a felon. What are some of the reasons that you feel some people, jail doesn't work for them or treatment doesn't work for them? They can't go ask for help. Why can't they go ask for help? What are some of the things you see there?
Oftentimes there's a stigma surrounding things. And of course, there's a lot of socioeconomic factors that go into each and every person's life. So if you're a physician who works with medications and there's an overseeing licensure board that if you they ban you or bar you for time from doing your job, it's something that may prevent that physician from receiving help. If you're an attorney and you're overseen by a bar association, that bar association might not take too kindly to you going to do those things. If you're on probation or parole, you may not want to go seek help because you might go to jail if you reach out and say, hey, I've fallen, I need help to get back up. You may end up just getting locked in a cage instead of get the treatment that you need to treat this chronic illness that you have.
And do you think models like Bethlehem, where they're just saying, you know what, come in, tell us you need help, we're not going to arrest you, we're going to get you the treatment you need, we'll introduce you to people like Blueprints for Addiction Recovery, do you think that could help get rid of this stigma and help make things work?
I think that's the absolute first step to breaking that stigma, and the first step to even breaking the stigma of police being bad people. And we are currently working on an initiative with some other different police departments to hopefully implement that same system so that there is no more stigma. You can literally walk in any police station, hopefully, and say, hey, I have heroin with me right now. I don't want to use it anymore. I want help. Give me help. And then they can connect you with a local treatment provider, an ethical local treatment provider, to get you that help that you need. And hopefully we can curb this epidemic from the ground to floor.
Thank you, Chris. I greatly appreciate you telling your story and helping others throughout the way. Just try to get to the next step and find treatment and ultimately be recovered. What we need to do, we just need to get government out of the way. We need to get rid of all these hurdles that government has that's just killing the process where people can actually find a treatment facility and find their pathway to treatment. Right now, they don't have that, and it's because of all these government hurdles. Insurance is in the way. They tell you can only stay for 7 days or 25 days, however long they want you to stay. You shouldn't be mandated by your insurance company. Your treatment, the individual and the doctor should mandate your treatment. You should set up a treatment plan. People currently can't do that because they're under the jeopardy of, under the mercy of the government and the insurance companies, the lobbyists behind this system. So we need to throw that out the door. Get rid of these lobbyists, get rid of these politicians, get rid of people who aren't experts. Get people who are experts, people in the free market, people like you and I, people like Chris and others like Chris that are out there that have gone through this, they've suffered, and they just want to help people. That's the only way we solve this opioid epidemic, and it's not by having politicians and lobbyists in Washington, D.C. just throwing this thing around like a political football. You notice they're not going live on this topic because they don't care about this topic. They don't care about helping the people. Lazy Lou and Crazy Casey, they don't care about this. That's why they're not here today, and that's why you're going to vote for Dale Kerns in November. I hope to see you at the town hall today. We'll have another one in. Thank you very much. Go to dalekerns.com to find out more. We'll try to go live as much as possible on this topic, and hopefully we can give you some more from our town halls if you're not able to come out today. If you want to volunteer on this topic or any others, collect signatures, go to dalekerns.com to donate and volunteer, and I look forward to seeing you today. Thank you very much.